Hello, it's Monday, October 26, 2009. This will probably be one of my most important videos that I've done. Aside from the first one, which I warned those that had ears to ear about the financial email, iPhone and Mac, about the financial problems that were coming. Those have happened. The United States is financially devastated, and it's at the point, of course, where I don't really have interest in explaining those that are clueless about the whole thing. Now we're in a state of emergency, and there's people that understand it, people that don't understand it. But I am going to read, of course, Man of Truth, a very controversial, but one of the best, I think, most important prophecies that I've come across. And I read widely. As my friends know out there, if somebody says you can't read that book, I don't necessarily believe that. So I'll read any book that I want to read, because I believe in freedom of thought. So I've done my research on this prophecy. I've seen all kinds of copies of it. I've seen pro or con. It's controversial, but it's time for me to read it. I felt that I was supposed to read it for about a month and delayed doing so, but I'm going to read it now. Right here now. To preface this, I just want to say that I appreciate all my subscribers, and I recommend that you don't leave the channel because of what I'm going to read. I think the staunchest supporters of the Constitution are a lot of people that would be termed born-again Christians, and people that are pretty much, they're not mainstream. They don't really fit in. They definitely aren't part of the matrix. So I think some non-matrix people will respond to this. Other people will get pissed about this, and it will cause persecution. And the bottom line, if you're not persecuted in whatever your belief system is, then you can be assured that you're not in the right belief system. Okay, so here goes. And you might have seen my shirt. Somebody that I really care about gave that to me. And it's obviously Second Amendment will become extremely relevant in the short run, to use an economic term. Okay, here goes. This is the greatest prophecy ever given by Joseph Smith. It's called the White Horse Prophecy, and I'm going to read it word for word. And in subsequent videos, if I'm allowed to stream, with everything that's going on, I will probably explain some of the passages in it. But here goes. I recommend that you listen to it. Some of it's been fulfilled, and a lot of it will be fulfilled before your eyes in the short run. The White Horse Prophecy by Joseph Smith. Another thing, Joseph Smith was murdered in cold blood. The President of the United States didn't want to protect him, and Governor Boggs not only didn't want to protect him in Illinois, but issued an extermination order to have the Mormons exterminated. And in fact, Joseph Smith was murdered in cold blood with his brother a month after he gave this. So this is one of his last prophecies, written from memory from some of his very close friends, and put down there. Okay, here goes. On or about the 6th of May, 1843, a grand review of the Nauvoo Legion was held in Nauvoo. The prophet Joseph complimented them for their good discipline and evolutions performed. The weather being hot, he called for a glass of water. So Joseph was forming a militia, obviously to endeavor to protect himself and his friends and loved ones. I love this toast. With a glass of water in his hand, he said, "I will drink you a toast to the overthrow of the Mobocrats," which he did in language as follows. "Here's wishing we were in the middle of the sea, in a stone canoe with iron paddles, and a shark swallowed the canoe, and the devil swallowed the shark, and him locked up in the northwest corner of hell, the key lost, and a blind man hunting for it." The next morning, a man who had heard the prophet give the toast here referred to visited the mansion of the prophet, and so abused him with bad language that he was ordered out by the prophet. It was while the two were out that my attention, this was recorded by a man named Rushton and another man named Turley. This is, I think, the best text of the White Horse Prophecy that I've found in 20 years of looking for things and studying. And hearing the man speaking in a loud tone of voice, I went toward them, the man finally leaving there then present. They were there then present, the prophet Joseph Smith, Theodore Turley, and myself. The prophet began talking to us of the mobbings and drivings and the persecutions we as a people had endured. "But," said he, "we have worse things to see. Our persecutors will have all the mobbings they want. Don't wish them any harm, for when you see their sufferings, you will shed tears for them. While the conversation was going on, we stood by by his south wicker gate in a triangle. Turning to me, he said, "I want to tell you something. In the future I will speak in parables like unto John the Revelator." Little did I then think the prophet of the Lord would soon be slain in cold blood. Continuing, he said, "You will go to the Rocky Mountains, and you will see a great and mighty people established, which I will call the white horse of peace and safety." Okay, the white horse of peace and safety. When the prophet said, "You will see," I asked him where he would be at the time. He answered, "I shall never go there. Your enemies will continue to follow you with persecutions, and they will make obnoxious laws against you in Congress to destroy the white horse. But you have a friend or two to defend you and throw out the worst part of the laws, so they will not hurt much. You must continue to petition Congress all the time, but they will treat you like strangers and aliens, and they will not give you your rights, but will govern you with strangers and commissioners." Yeah, I'll go into the desert. Make sure you have water storage too, okay? You can go 3 days without water, 30 days without food, so make sure you have water storage. Back to the White Horse Prophecy. You will see the Constitution of the United States almost destroyed. It will hang by a thread, and that thread is fine as the finest silk fiber. A lot of legends and things come from that reference to the Constitution hanging by a thread. At this point, the prophet's countenance became sad because he said, "I love the Constitution." And so do I, as man of truth and Brent Long. I love it. It was made, back to the quotes of the White Horse Prophecy, "It was made by the inspiration of God, and it will be preserved and saved by the efforts of the white horse and the red horse, who will combine in its defense. The white horse will raise an ensign on the tops of the mountains of peace and safety, where all nations may flee unto for safety." The white horse will find the mountains full of minerals, and they will become very rich. You will find several piled up in the streets. At this time, it must be remembered, this is a little note in the text here, that it was not known that the precious metals existed either in the Rocky Mountains or in California. You will see gold shoveled up like sand. And being in California, you know, San Francisco 49ers. I had a chance to date Kelly Brody, the daughter of John Brody, one of the San Francisco 49er quarterback a long time ago. Anyway, gold was not discovered in California until 49. So this was given about 5 or 6 years before the gold discoveries in California. Gold will be of but little value even in a mercantile capacity, for the people of the world will have something else to do in seeking for salvation. The time will come when the banks in every nation will fail. Hey, getting pretty close here, aren't we? And only 2 places will be safe where the people can deposit their golden treasure. These places will be the White Horse and England's vaults. You people in England, starts to get into you guys now. And this is what's coming. So I got to read this while the net is still rocking here. A terrible revolution will take place in the land of America, such as has never been seen before. For the land will literally be left without a supreme government, and every species of wickedness will run rampant. It will be so terrible that father will be against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother. The most terrible scenes of murder and bloodshed and rapine that have ever been looked upon will take place. Peace will be taken from the earth, and there will be no peace, only in the Rocky Mountains. This will cause hundreds and thousands of the honest in heart of the world to gather there, not because they would be saints, but for safety, and because they would not take up the sword against their neighbors. You will be so numerous that we will be in danger of famine, but not for the want of seed time and harvest, but that so many will have to be fed. Many will come with bundles under their arms to escape the calamities, and there will be no escape, only by fleeing to Zion. Those that come to you will try and keep the laws and be one with you, for they will see your unity and the greatness of your organization. The Turkish Empire, the Crescent, will be one of the first powers that will be disrupted as a power. For freedom must be given for the gospel to be preached in the Holy Land. The Lord took the best blood of the nations and planted them on the small island now called England, or Great Britain, and gave them great powers in the nations for 1,000 years. And this power will continue with them, that they may keep the balance of power, that they may keep Russia from usurping power over all the world. England and France are not bitter enemies, but they will be allied together in order to keep Russia from conquering the world. Check this one out. The two popes, Greek and Catholic, will come together and be united. The Protestant religions do not know how much they are indebted to Henry VIII for throwing off the Pope's bull and establishing the Protestant faith. He was the only monarch that could do so at the time, and he did it because the nation was at his back to sustain him. One of the peculiar features in England is the established red coat, a uniform making so remarkable a mark to shoot at, and yet they have conquered wherever they have gone. The reason for this will be known by them someday. The lion and the unicorn of England is the ensign of Israel. We're talking true Israel here. It gets pretty deep. The wisdom and statesmanship of England comes from there being so much of the blood of Israel in the nation. While the terrible revolution of which mention has been made is going on, England will be neutral until it becomes so inhuman that she will interfere to stop the shedding of blood. England and France will then unite together and come with intention to make peace, not to subdue the nation. They will find the nation so broken up and so many claiming government, still there will be no responsible government. Then it will appear to other nations or powers as though England had taken possession of the country. We're talking about our country, the United States, right now. So the prophet, here we go. The black horse will flee to the invaders and will join with them, for they will have fear of becoming slaves again. Knowing England does not believe in slavery, fleeing to them, they believed would make them safe. Armed with British bayonets, the doings of the black horse will be terrible. Once again, in context, this was given in 1844. So the prophet said he could not bear to look longer upon the scene as shown him in vision, that he asked the Lord to close the scene. Continuing, he said, during this time, the great white horse will have gathered strength, sending out elders to get the honest and heart of the United States, to stand by the Constitution of the United States as it was given by the inspiration of the Lord. This stuff hasn't happened yet. It gets really deep, so don't prejudge it too massively. In these days, God will set up a kingdom. That needs explanation too. Okay, I'm just going to read straight, and then I'll comment in future videos on this if I'm allowed to. In these days, God will set up a kingdom, never to be thrown down, for other kingdoms to come unto. And these kingdoms will not let the gospel be preached, will be humbled until they will. England, Germany, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, Holland, and Belgium have a considerable amount of the blood of Israel among their people, which must be gathered. These nations will submit to the kingdom of God. England will do so as a whole, in comparison, as she threw off the Catholic power. The nobility know the gospel is true, but it has not enough pomp and grandeur and influence for them to embrace it. They are proud and will not acknowledge the kingdom of God, or come into it until they see the power which it will have. Peace and safety in the Rocky Mountains will be protected by a cord and a band of the white horse and the red horse. The coming of the 10 tribes of Israel, the coming of the Messiah among his people, will be so natural that only those who see him will know he has come. But he will come and give his law unto Zion and minister unto his people. This will not be his coming in the clouds of heaven to take vengeance on the world. One just quick aside on the kingdom of God. It is not any one particular church. That's a heavy thing to say, especially sitting here in Utah. But it is not, you don't have to be a member of a particular church to be a member of the kingdom of God. Okay? The temple in Jackson County will be built in this generation. The saints will think there will not be time to build it, but with all the great help you will receive, can put up a great temple quickly. You will have gold, silver, and precious stones, for these things will only be used for beautifying the temple. All the skilled mechanics you want, and the 10 tribes of Israel to help you build it. When you see this land bounded with iron, you may look towards Jackson County. At this point he made a pause, and looking up as though the vision was still in view, he said, there is a land beyond the Rocky Mountains, where I'm from, California, that will be invaded by the heathen Chinese, unless great care and protection are given. Speaking of the heathen, Where there is no law, there is no condemnation. This will apply to them. Power will be given to the white horse to rebuke nations afar off, and they will obey. Not that they will be one with the white horse, but when the law goes forth, they will obey, for the law will go forth from Zion. The last great struggle we'll have to contend with will be when the whole of America will be the Zion of God. Those opposing will be called Gog and Magog. The nations of the world, led by the Russian Tsar and their power, will be great, but all opposition will be overcome, and this land will then be the Zion of our God. You don't need any man between you and God. Woman, man, or child. Look straight to God. Look to the heavens. Humble yourself. God's real. And he is no respecter of persons. We are all his children. And we are in the closing scenes leading up to the second coming of his son. That's the bottom line. That's the truth.